8. Remo Rahula and Berat Turka, row 9. Haven't mentioned Berat Turka in commentary. The guy from Turkey has gone better than this, and it may well be that I'm crediting him with his junior form and expecting him to translate it immediately into the seniors. It's not as easy as that, Ken Walker. It sometimes takes a little bit of doing. Top 20 completed by the guys I mentioned previously, Matthias Hobart from Spain and Peter Griffin from the UK. Tom Meyer, the Dutchman, and Maxim Shotland, the Russian, are row 11. Row 12, Julian Falchero and Nicola Picot, and the grid completed by the Japanese driver Ippai Yamamoto and another of the Russians, Sergei Munarev. A 9-lap race to complete round 2 of the heats in the Rotax Winter Cup 2014.
So Jay Najjar's another one. He needs a good result here, isn't he? Because he got in troubles in his first race earlier on. But Jay, who steps up like Guan Yu Zhou, who he fought very hard with in last year's Rotax Euro Challenge, within many races, his teammate, has looked pretty impressive. Well, very impressive on his step up to seniors. Jay finishing 3rd in the championship last year. But he's had one bad race in his 2 good races now, just to make sure he gets through with a reasonable grid to the pre-finals. You mentioned Jarro Dekkers there. First time I've seen him race as well, Kevin. Jarro's been very, very solid all the way through practice and time qualifying, and pretty decent start to the day so far. So we've had a win already for Joseph Riley, who's at the front of the grid on the pole position. He won the first race this morning from Ed Brand, and Lars Lambrell was 3rd in that one. And the second senior race this morning, Guan Yu Zhou was the winner from Tom Grice and Alvo Talvar. And we just saw that we've had a 3rd different winner in the 3rd heat, with Josh Price just now taking the victory from Connor Jupp, who came home just behind him in 2nd place.
As we said in our intros, Chris, it does illustrate the strength in depth, doesn't it, of this particular class, this particular event?
Absolutely right, yeah. Winter Cup, it's a one-off race. This is not a series of races strung together with championship points. It's a one-off, almost a pre-season race, I guess you could call it, ahead of the main Euro Championship. But it's a big event in its own right. It's a very prestigious race to win the Winter Cup, and full, packed with very, very talented and successful drivers who we'll see a lot more of during the rest of the season, and I'm sure.
Valuable prizes in the shape of the tickets into the Euro Challenge for the season.
Yeah, fantastic prize, isn't it? You win your class here this weekend, you get free entry into the full season, and then there are prizes as well of free race entries for 2nd and 3rd in each class. But here they come, Kent, ready for you to talk them around the start. Well, again, it's going to be a 9-lap race for the seniors.
So Joseph Riley is on pole position, and Jay Najjar joins him on the front row. That looks a bit of a swift start, and we're racing, and it is a legitimate start. Joseph Riley leading from Jack Constable. Very fast start by Jack Constable, but he's gone wide and thrown it all away. So Jack Constable has lost out on that, but Joseph Riley having gone well. Jay Najjar, and we've got drivers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of them leaving the circuit or come to a halt on the circuit. They weren't front runners, and I have to confess that I don't identify the guy in 2nd place. I'm not sure if Chris can see him. I'm not trying to throw Chris under the bus. Not easy to see. I don't think it's Jack Constable, and I don't think it's Jay Najjar. So the guy under pressure, we know, is Joseph Riley. We'll identify momentarily who it might be. Well, Joseph Riley taking a circumspect line. It's cart number 261. Well, that's a good effort, because that's from a long way back, Jarro Dekkers. And perhaps Chris and myself can be forgiven for not identifying the driver, who we've not seen previously. But maybe we can have a pat on the back for saying we've been impressed with him. And Chris, we couldn't really see the entirety of that first turn incident, but the Dutchman knows what he's doing on a track, doesn't he? And putting pressure on the leader as we come towards the end of the opening lap.
Just watched Glenn Van Paris go around the outside of 3 karts coming out of turn 9, the right-hander, which leads onto that back straight. Just kept the outside line, found loads of traction, and Glenn went from 8th up to 5th place. So at the end of lap number 1, through they come. Joseph Riley from Yarrow Deckers. Ed Brand is there in 3rd place, just wiping his visor as he took the opportunity to take one hand off the wheel to do that down the straight. A very long straight here into turn 1. And then in 4th place, we've got Lars Lamberel. He's going really well this weekend, having a good turn of form here is Lars. Glenn Van Paris with 5th place with that move that I mentioned. Somebody else that needs to go well here in this race is Oliver Myers. He's been quick in practice and qualifying, but he too was in the wars in the first race and didn't get a result. So he needs one here, and he's 6th at the end of the first lap as they come down now into the left-hander at turn 9, with that gap from 1st to 2nd maybe already beginning to come down just a little bit here. Joseph Riley.
Well, it was, I'm sure,
Yeah.
Chris, but then just momentarily, I think that was a little tweak on the carburettor by Yarrow Deckers, and in turning his attention to that, in fact, he's losing 2nd place as a result of the situation. Yes, he is. That is consummated. So Ed Brand wriggling his way through, and the pressure off Joseph Riley. I was going to say, Chris, when Joseph Riley was a regular racer with us, he was very much, how shall I say it, an all-action guy in the thick of things. On his return, looking a very majestic. Oh, and going through into 2nd place. Now, was that
Lamberel.
Lars Lamberel?
Great move, 4th to 2nd. Has he held it coming out of the turn? No, Ed Brand's got back ahead of him. Lamberel down to 3rd place, might be back down to 4th in a minute through turn 1 as Yarrow Deckers fires one back up the inside and just about holds it on the way into turn 2. So Yarrow Deckers back to 3rd. Good effort though from Lars Lamberel. At the end of the lap went from 4th to 2nd, but he couldn't quite hold it.
It was the same thing that we're saying. These youngsters are willing to have a go, aren't they? Maybe discretion would have been the better choice, but the youngsters are saying, hey, we're here to race. Let's give it a go.
He's having another go. He's just gone 3rd, just as you said it, going up the hill into turn 6. So Lars Lamberel, well, we know he's always one that has a go, isn't he, Lars Lamberel? He's never dull to watch, that's for sure. But I think he's driving really well this weekend, Lars Lamberel. I've been very impressed with him so far, and he's there now up into 3rd place. So with the orange helmet, the green cart, 250. Joseph Riley leads the way. Ed Brand with the pink and blue helmet and the red and yellow colours of Intrepid in 2nd place. And there in 3rd position, Lars Lamberel with a dark suit, having got ahead of Yarrow Deckers. Glenn Van Paris is in 5th place, another man with a black helmet and black race suit. In 6th position, Michael Cool up to 6th now. Oliver Myers 7th. Tom Meyer is 8th. Jessica Batman's up to 9th. Josh White completing the top 10. Jack Constable fell back at the start of the race, but he's just recovered to 11th place. Jay Najjar also struggling at the start of this race.
I think he was
16th.
involved in the Jack Constable
I
incident.
think he was, wasn't he? They were together on the grid, weren't they? So Jay Najjar, again, having to try and fight his way back at the order. He's got a bit more chance this time, though, because he didn't lose as much time as he did in the first race, first corner incident. So he's 16th, and with a chance, possibly, to get back in the top 10.
Just having a look down that lower order of the top 20, Jay Najjar, as you say, in 16th place, Matthias Hobart in 15th place. Matthias got work to do, having not been allowed to start his first race. Josh White outside of the top 10, as you'd also said, in 11th place, still wants to find a little bit more. Jack Constable on the rise in 10th place, but not able to see the point I wanted to make previously, but there we go. Let's just stay as we are with Joseph Riley, Ed Brand and Lars Lamberel, 1, 2 and 3, followed by the impressive Yarrow Deckers, who we're watching for the first time.
Good scrap going on for 7th place between Oliver Myers, who's just run wide, lost the place and then gained it again, and the driver he's battling against is Tom Meyer. So Oliver Myers, the British driver, up against the Dutchman Tom Meyer. They're battling over 7th and 8th places, and they've had a couple of side-by-side moves with each other now. They arrived down at the hairpin with a bit more gap between them down at turn 12, but those two having a real dice. Good to watch. The race leader not having to worry about overtaking anybody at the moment. Ed Brand in 2nd place is more than half a second back, just tweaks the carburation, the 2-stroke mix, and there in 3rd place, Lars Lamberel hanging on to his tail. They've both pulled away now from Yarrow Deckers. Lars Lamberel is all over the tail at the start of this lap of the 205 kart of Ed Brand. So Ed Brand coming under pressure now, isn't he?
And with Ed having been perhaps not at his most impressive earlier today, dare I say it, our money to have Lars Lamberell wriggling past him. Let's see as it unfolds.
Well, he's had a second place finish already today, Ed Brand, behind Joseph Riley. It's that order again at the moment, but Lars Lamberell pushing hard. In fact, you got the same top three as you had earlier on here, because Joe Riley, Ed Brand and Lars Lamberell were the top three in the earlier race.
Yeah, I'd forgotten that, yeah.
I've got a feeling that Lars Lamberell doesn't want to finish third again this time, though. He looks to be slightly quicker, doesn't he, than Ed Brand? But Ed just puts that car. He doesn't ever get flustered, does he, Ed Brand? He just puts that car where he wants. He doesn't leave a gap, he doesn't make a mistake, and it's really difficult for Lars Lamberell to get past. So second and third go down to the hairpin, but Ed Brand's just got it under control at the moment.
His positioning on the circuit is absolutely ideal, because Lars Lamberell is willing to make a move and goes for it. I was going to say Lars Lamberell is willing to use the entire width of the circuit, but Ed Brand was covering him, but then Ed left a gap, and Ed now fighting back, and Ed Brand definitely stung by that one. Well, Chris and myself was suggesting that Lars Lamberell might make that move, or perhaps I was, and Chris was saying that Ed Brand was in control. I was also saying that, and I believed Ed was in control at the moment the pass came, because Ed was very track aware. But now Lars Lamberell's got a different dimension. One thing to get past a guy of Ed's calibre, you've got to hold him back now, though. Having said that, Chris, that's what, 3.5 kart lengths between them in favour of the Dutch lad.
Not bad for somebody who's just stepped up to see his Lars Lamberell. He's well, we saw on his day he could always do it, couldn't he? But he's very together here this weekend, driving really well, and now he's pulling away from Ed Brand.
And Ed wiping his visor, so there's almost the body language of Ed. I'd better see what I'm doing, but I know I'm in third place in this one. There's still 4 laps to go, including the one they're on.
Is Lars Lamberell now capable of catching up with Joseph Riley? He's got the fastest first sector time of anybody, Lars Lamberell. So he's got a chance, that's for sure. In second sector is good as well. It's his personal best. And in the second sector, though, he's just a fraction slower than Joseph Riley. But overall, I know he's quick in the third sector. That's where he's pulling off his moves. So Lars Lamberell might just close up to the race leader a bit here with 3 laps to go. 127.3 for the leader, 127.0 for Lars Lamberell. He is quicker in sectors 1 and 3 at the start and the end of the lap. That is where Lars Lamberell is making up all the time. In the middle of the lap, Joe Riley is just a little bit quicker than him. But look how he's closing in at the start of this lap already, Ken.
Well, you wouldn't want to call the race with absolute certainty. You wouldn't want to put your mortgage on it, would you? Because there's still a big advantage, you have to say, at the front for Joe Riley. But Lars Lamberell, he's got the bit between his teeth. I guess with 2 3/4 laps to go, the checkered flag's going to come a bit too soon for the Dutchman. But this is really hotting up for a good finish. Joseph Riley, driving like Ed Brand has been doing, very, shall we say, sedately. I don't say that in a negative way. I mean, not making anything extravagant, covering all potential moves, but Lars Lamberell gunning for him. There is an opportunity, 2 1/4 laps to go. Is Joseph Riley going to coast home? Is Lars Lamberell going to push him to a blanket finish? We're going to find out. 2 to go at the end of this one.
Looks like Michael Cool's moved up to 5th place as well, ahead of Glenn Van Paris. So 4th, 5th and 6th, a good battle developing there with Jaradekers, then Michael Cool, I think, then Glenn Van Paris in those 3 positions. Through they come then, the top 2. The gap is now at 0.6 of a second. And yes, on that lap, Lars Lamberell was the best part of half a second quicker again. So again, at the start and the end of the lap, he's flying up the hill now, and he's with the race leader. 2 laps to go. He has got time to do this. Now, and don't forget, these 2 are both trying to get themselves on pole position for the pre-final. And
Lamberell goes through, Chris. Well done.
Good move, that wasn't it? Traction coming up the hill, coming out of turn 5 and up to turn 6 at the top of the hill. He's just got much better traction.
I just don't think Joseph Riley did anything wrong.
No, not
but
really.
Lars Lamberell has got the traction, as you say, and he's also got the scent of victory. Well, Joseph Riley, what does he think now? He's been untroubled the whole of the race, and without appearing to be troubled, other than for about 20 seconds, He's not leading it anymore.
Change for fourth
Yeah.
at the hairpin as Michael Cool goes at the inside of Yarrow Deckers. Glenn Van Paris has a go as well, but just drops back, and then he goes up the inside again. So Yarrow Deckers losing out there. Michael Cool with a good move to trigger all of that off. Down into the hairpin they go then. Lars Lambrell leading from Joseph Riley. Ed Brand just about half a second, 3/4 of a second behind them in third place. A lap and a bit to go. Out of the final corner they come to start a fresh lap. And Lars Lambrell looks to me like he's got this sorted. Joseph Riley is just dropping away a little bit. Smooth as you like, but Lars Lambrell is the one with the pace in these conditions. And that will mean that if it stays like this, it'll be a first and a second for Joseph Riley, a first and a third for Lars Lambrell. So Joey's still going to have the edge. Ed Brand with a couple of second place finishes. This is going to be determined who starts on pole position by the final race later on. And it's looking like it's going to be one of these
beautifully,
three.
doesn't it?
Yeah, nothing in them. Nothing in that. Ed, though, we know Ed will be happy enough with his third or fourth, really.
If you went to him and said, hey, Ed, that was a pretty poor show, wasn't it? He'd say, oh, it wasn't so bad. If you said, hey, Ed, that was a brilliant drive, he'd say, oh, it wasn't bad.
He'll be up there. He knows pole's nice and everything, but it doesn't get you a trophy, does it, at the end of the day? So, less than half a lap to go. Through they come. Michael Cool there in fourth. Pity he had that exclusion, wasn't it, in the first race, having driven so well in that one as well, but he was found to have caused the issue. So I suppose you could say he drove well for most of the race, but caused an issue, I think, at the start of the race, which got him in trouble. There are 30 cameras around here with two very studious members of our GMMC watching every move, and if you pull off a dirty move, you're going to get found out when they replay it and show it back to the clerk of the course. But nearly the end of the race, Ken. Good drive that from Lars Lambrell.
Indeed it was. You really cannot take anything away from any of those front three, because Lars Lambrell takes the victory by 1.3 seconds. That perhaps flatters him a little bit, but Joseph Riley, in my book, really didn't do an awful lot wrong, but was caught by somebody who was just flying at the end. And Ed Brand, well, without wanting to sound as if I'm making a pun on the Belgian behind him, Ed Brand, Mr. Cool, can say, well, look, if I'm having a second here and a third there and a fourth there, don't tell me I haven't won a race. I'm where I need to be when we get to the sharp end. Again, a good drive by Michael Cool. I praised him last time. I hope I'm not going to praise him this time with the same end result. And Glenn Van Paris, the fellow Belgian to Michael Cool, again coming up with a decent show. We have said the same of both of them, and it is true. Both capable of very, very good results, but neither of them seeming to put a full season together. Yarrow Deckers, well, he was the wild card so far as I was aware, and turned in a very good show, running second at one point in the early stages. Oliver Myers, well, I guess seventh in the context of what's happened previously will be acceptable for Ollie Myers. Jess Backman 8th, the top 10 finish for her. Tom Meyer 9th, and Jack Constable into the top 10. And I don't really see any further hard luck stories behind. So
well,
maybe
Jay Nijar was the one, wasn't he?
When I said that, I had in my mind there is somebody, and I couldn't think who. Jay Nijar in that very, very early incident. Yeah. Oh, and
he's not asleep, but Jay Nijar is having
Chris,
having a nightmare, isn't he?
Let me stop you and hand you that.
Oh dear. We've got a disqualification, I'm afraid, just come through from race control. This is back to race 7, which was the juniors. And sad to say that there's been a disqualification, and it was for Will Tregurtha, who did finish the race in third place. So Will Tregurtha has been excluded from race 7, and it's for a technical non-conformity. So again, that's not something you can blame the driver for. It's something that I'm afraid is probably out of his hands, really, but he's the one that's going to suffer for that, and that means that he's now got an 8th place finish and a non-finish and exclusion. It's going to make it tricky now for him to qualify for the finals, but he still could do that, and he's quick enough to get a good finish and still get through. So frustration there for Will Tregurtha, but he's just got to pick his chin up and get on with it and try and get a good result now and try and get through to the finals tomorrow. There's the rest of the results for race 10, qualifying heat number 4 for the seniors, and you can see that 24 of the 26 drivers finished. Sergei Munarev and Julien Falchero, I'm afraid, didn't manage to finish the race, but given the conditions, the rate of attrition has been very good today, actually, because you'd expect there to be a lot more people not finishing races when the track is like this, but actually most people have been getting to the finish. We haven't seen too many dramas out on track, so good level of driving. The drivers working hard with Nigel Edwards and the team at RGMMC to make sure that everything's kept under control, and the standards are good, the standards are high. So I think good driving by and large today from everybody involved.